This week, Aaron Rodgers out for the season with a torn Achilles. I'm going to do that again.
Did you say Achilles?
I said Achilles.
Yeah.
Welcome to Overtime Operators, the show where we teach you how to make money in sports. This week, Aaron Rodgers out for the season with a torn Achilles. If you've got him in your fantasy lineup, we've got some alternatives for you.
We've also got some great bets, game bets, player props, all that jazz. We're going to talk about it. So let's get into it.
Okay, Casey, Aaron Rodgers plays 4 downs of football for the Jets. These guys excited about him for the whole offseason. Did so much to make this trade happen. A lot of people pretty hot on A-Rod this year. A lot of people building fantasy lineups around him. 4 downs. He plays 4 downs and then he's done. I mean, Achilles, they don't just like mend themselves. You tear those things, they're done. So
True.
Who do you got? What are the 3? You got I think you got 3 alternatives here that you think are kind of like the best guys to take if you built your team sort of around an Aaron Rodgers quarterback strategy.
Right. So for context here, 19 quarterbacks in fantasy football. This is all according to Yahoo. 19 quarterbacks are already taken off the board, not available. So if you're looking to grab a guy off of a waiver wire, here are the 3 guys you could look to target that are not rostered in most leagues. First off, you have his backup from Green Bay, his understudy, the guy taking his spot. Jordan Love went 15 for 27 last week, 245 pass yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 3 rushes for 12 yards. At a sack and 1 fumble last week against the Bears. I think that's pretty good. Not my favorite. I'm going to lead up to my favorite here. But Jordan Love, a viable option if you want to go that way. What do you say, John?
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I'm partial to Jordan Love. He played football or played college football at Utah State, which is where I'm from. So I'm definitely partial to him. And I mean, Green Bay seems to know what they're doing with the quarterback transition. This is their 3rd in a row where it's like this handoff seems pretty smooth, honestly. Draft a quarterback before you need one. Crazy idea, but it seems to work.
Another guy I'm not incredibly high on historically, but he got the job done last week. Derek Carr, rostered in only 38% of leagues. I forgot to mention Jordan Love, rostered in only 32% of leagues. But Derek Carr, 23 for 33 last week for 305 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, did throw 1 pick, and he tacked on 3 rushes for an extra 4 yards. Not incredible yards on the ground there. And he was sacked 4 times against Tennessee last week at home in New Orleans. So again, not my absolute favorite pick to replace Rodgers. Probably not going to replace all the production you were hoping Rodgers would give you, but he is available in most leagues. So that's a guy you could go for. I'll just jump into my last one here. The guy I'd be most excited to replace Aaron Rodgers with. He's actually rostered in the fewest amount of leagues out of the 3 here. Matt Stafford, rostered in only 29% of leagues. Last week, he went 24 for 38 for 334 passing yards. Didn't throw a passing touchdown. He did tack on 11 rushing yards on 3 rushes. That was all last week against Seattle at home in Los Angeles. Basically, on this one, I think he threw for a ton of yardage, but failed to get into the end zone in any way. Still put up an okay fantasy day, as okay as it can be without scoring. So imagine when he does score 1 or 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game. I think he's going to be as viable as anybody who isn't rostered in most leagues currently.
That's without Cooper Kupp, who we don't know how long it'll take for him to come back, but number 1 receiver. No number 1 receiver still passes for over 300 yards. And it was just game script, right? Like Cam Akers ran it in. It was just, they ran it in. That's what happened. And I think I like Matt Stafford. We got a former Super Bowl champion there, right? And not rostered in most leagues.
Yep.
Could be a guy that could replace that Rodgers level production. I am surprised about some of the people you left out, namely Mr. Irrelevant, the 49ers QB. Maybe this guy's probably rostered in more leagues now, especially after the week 1 performance that we saw. But Brock Purdy, to me, I mean, that'd be my number 1. If he is available, I am taking him. And I think there's a chance he actually outproduces what Rodgers would have done this year.
Yeah, so according to my rules for the game, I wanted to only offer up suggestions that were rostered in less than 50% of leagues, according to Yahoo. Purdy just makes it over that bar. I think he's rostered in about 55, 56% of leagues. So I couldn't add him to this list. But if he is available in your league, in a single QB league, I think he fits well what Rodgers was going to give you. I think he's the most straightforward, straight across replacement for Rodgers. If you came into the fantasy season with Rodgers as your QB, I think you likely had a little bit of QB by committee on your roster and planned on streaming week to week from your bench. Rodgers being the A side and maybe having a backup QB who could fill in on some of those bad weeks. I think Purdy could step into those shoes pretty easily and be that A side of a QB committee on your fantasy team.
Who else is on your radar here? I mean, those are your top three, but they could be available in your league. They could not be available in your league. Who else are you eyeing here? Just both from the waiver wires in certain leagues and as trade targets. Like if Rodgers was your guy, what does your strategy look like, and who are you eyeing for trade targets or for waivers? That isn't one of those three guys.
So off of those waiver wires, I mean, it's going to be those three guys, maybe a Purdy if he's available. For trade targets, I would go almost the exact opposite way. Given that it's only going to be week 2 here, we have 1 week of football under our belts. I would try to buy low on a guy who probably isn't going to be, who's probably going to finish in the top 5. That's how you win leagues is by getting, top heavy at positions. I would take my shot at trying to upgrade from Rodgers to like a Burrow or an Allen. If you have Rodgers as your quarterback in fantasy in a 1 QB league, you're probably pretty loaded at other positions just because of Rodgers, draft stock not being the highest. You could get him later in drafts. So you probably are good at some other positions. I would go look to those Burrow and Allen managers and see how they're feeling at least. There's a chance that they're starting to be a little bit nervous. They shouldn't be, but there's a very human element in fantasy football. So if those guys are looking to sweat it and they might be weak at a position you're strong at, there's an opportunity there for you to buy low and still be okay at your other positions and get yourself a superstar better than Rodgers ever could have been for you, probably.
I'm about to say a bunch of guys who probably are available on the waivers in non-superflex leagues, but in superflex leagues specifically, where Rodgers would be a starter. I'm looking at, trading for Joe Burrow, trading for Josh Allen. That's you're going to pay up to do that. I'm kind of looking at who do you maybe not have to pay up to get that is a little bit of a flyer, but could end up having really good production. So to me, I like Russ. Russ, I mean, I don't like him, but I think there's a chance we see good production out of Russell Wilson. I like Anthony Richardson. You might not have to pay too heavily to get him. Not as heavily as you would have to pay with Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, but a little bit more heavy than Russ, or a guy who's most likely available. I think we could see maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo, giving us some production, right? He's got a lot of weapons, and he is that kind of guy that he can do some things with weapons. So those are sort of a few guys I would eye and see what fits. It has to fit with your strategy though. If your strategy was built around Rodgers, it's most likely built around other players in non-quarterback positions being really good. So who can just sort of fill a gap. And those are all guys who I think could all potentially fill a gap.
Yeah, I agree. I like those picks. Richardson, I think he's due for a breakout at some point in the season. The problem, depending on the league you're in, a lot of managers kind of already think that. So yeah, maybe you can get him cheap. Maybe you can't. Wilson, I actually agree. I think he showed enough to show that maybe that offense is turning around under Sean Payton, but I don't think he did too much to raise his price. So exactly. I actually like that buy spot on him. And I do think he feels like the A side of a QB committee pretty well. Yep. He could be your starter most weeks. And then Jimmy G, as you mentioned, I think he fits more as the B side of a QB committee. I don't think you do want Jimmy G starting most weeks on your fantasy roster, but he could fill in maybe 4 or 5 weeks, his best matchups, or when your main QB has some poor matchups. I think those are all solid bets.
I would put it this way. If it's me, I mean, you're kind of taking an interesting approach to the trade. I mean, it's just two different outlooks here, and you're probably a little better at fantasy than me. So if people are going to follow somebody here, I would say follow Casey. But for me, if I drafted Aaron Rodgers, I was already not, he was either a QB2 in a super flex league, or I was already not really planning on getting a ton of points from my QB spot. So I'm looking at this and saying, hey, that doesn't ruin my season that he's out for the season. I just need to find someone else who's passable. And I don't really want to give up anyone else on my like the rest of my roster is probably how I want it, right? So I don't want to go trade a piece of my roster to go get Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. I mean, maybe I'll heat check those managers and see if I can get them cheap, but most likely I'm not going to get them cheap. I'm just going to say, how can I fill a spot with somebody who is going to maybe not produce quite as much as Aaron Rodgers, but that was already not my strategy to get a lot of production from that spot. So that would be my take here. I think I'd probably, and most likely, I would leave Burrow, Josh Allen, those tier 1 QBs. I'd still kind of leave them alone, I think.
I only have one thing to say to that. You like the rest of your roster, of course, if you have a guy like Rodgers, but I would say just, in general, good piece of advice is to just draft better, have more guys that are valuable and be comfortable trading some of them away. Draft so deep at every position that you got good valuable trade assets everywhere, right?
Yeah, the best is just draft every single player that you want and have a perfect roster. I mean, like, I don't understand what's so hard about it. No, I mean, look, shop, see what the other managers are, because the other managers are going to expect you to shop if you've got Rodgers at this point, right? So feel them out, but most likely, I think a lot of other managers in a league at this point, they're going to see you as in the vulnerable position. So don't make decisions from there. That's the number one thing. Don't make decisions like you're in a vulnerable position, because you're not really. You weren't built around a quarterback if your strategy was Rodgers. So yeah, I mean, don't go making bad trades for other parts of your rosters. That's like the worst thing you could do.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to some betting. We got some, let's hit some game bets first. Casey, which game bets do you like this week? Do you like spreads? Do you like money lines? What are you looking at this week?
Yeah, I lean towards betting on spreads just in general. I think it just makes a little more sense to me, gives you a little bit more grace on matchups that you might already feel a certain way about. And this week in particular, the theme I have around my picks were all small spreads and betting on the favorites. So betting on the favorite to win by more than just 2 or 3 points. I think for each of these teams that I'm about to bring up, I think they should win by at least a touchdown. So first one on the docket here, Chargers at Titans. Oh, also all away teams for me this week. I'm just hot on all the away teams. Chargers at Titans. Yeah, right. It's an interesting week. I think this is a lot of cool matchups. But Chargers at Titans, they're the 3-point favorites. I'll take them to beat the Titans by over 3 points any day of the week. Last week the Chargers, sure, they lost, but they lost in a shootout to the Dolphins, who showed the most potent offense in the league last week. So, okay, sure, they lost, but it was a tight game. I think that they showed that they're a really good team, the Chargers. I mean, they're just too talented for a team like the Titans in their current capacity to really keep up. I don't think they can keep it close. The Titans still have a ton to prove, and they got themselves in this like scrappy week 1 loss to the Saints, who, I tend to look at the Saints a different direction. They're the team that can grind out those close wins. And I think the Titans are maybe a team that'll crumble in those closer situations. So really, I just see like 2 different classes of football all together here between the Chargers and the Titans in week 1. And I'll take the Chargers all day. Give the Titans 3 points, give them 4 points, give them 5 points. I don't care. I want the Chargers here. So I'm taking the Chargers to beat the spread of 3 points. What do you think on that?
I like it. I like the strategy of like, find the matchups where I'm pretty sure, like I'm confident in the winner, bet the favorite on low spreads. It's like just a solid portfolio strategy.
Thank you, John. So last week, like I said, the Titans, they lost this scrappy loss to the Saints. So I'm going to go with the Saints here on my second pick. Saints -3 over the Panthers at the Panthers. This one I'm maybe a little less gung-ho on, but like I said, I think the Saints can win some close games. I think they'll win this game. Mostly because Bryce Young doesn't look like he's there yet. I think the Panthers still can be a good team this year by the end of the year, but they're just not there yet. And the Saints look like they've gelled quicker than I expected them to. Derek Carr, journeyman quarterback at this point, not a superstar, but he looks like he can do just enough to get these wins. Very Raiders-esque from his career. It looks like the Saints are Raiders 2.0, kind of in my opinion. And the Panthers are not a team that can contend with them. So again, give them 3 points, give them 4 points, give them 5 points. I don't care. I like the Saints here over the Panthers. John, what do you think on that one?
See, this one, I'm just out of the action on this game. I don't feel like I have seen enough of the V2, the remakes of these teams to like just be confident betting in this one at all. So I'm just no action for me on Panthers Saints, but I mean, I like the confidence. Again, if people are following people into bets, I would follow you before I'd follow me.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. My third matchup, this one's actually a 2-point spread, even closer, but I think this one could be the biggest blowout of the bunch. Maybe controversial, but I'm taking Cleveland over Pittsburgh. That's the Browns at Steelers. Give the Steelers 2 points. I still like the Browns. Last week, the Browns defense looked really good, and the offense started to show signs of recovery. Deshaun Watson, not quite his former self yet. He's been out of football for a bit. Looked terrible last week, or looked terrible at the end of last season. But last week he looked a little bit better, step forward there, and I think he can continue to take steps forward because we've seen the potential of him before in the younger part of his career in Houston. We know he can be the guy for a franchise, and this team has more weapons than that team had, as well as a good running game and a great defense. Myles Garrett, just a wrecking crew, one-man wrecking crew on the defensive line there. And I also think this is highlighted by the Steelers getting trounced by the Niners last week. Sure, the Niners are a better team than the Browns, don't get me wrong, but the Steelers' hype coming out of preseason was just too much. Everybody loved the way they looked, but I said it before, I'll say it again, I was right about it last week. They were playing their starters in preseason against other teams' second and third stringers. That's why they looked so good. Last week when they played actual starters on an actual NFL team, they looked really, really bad. I think the Browns have this one pretty easily. I take the Browns and give the Steelers 2 points. I don't care. What do you think on that one, on the Battle of Ohio on Monday Night Football, no less, John?
I will never bet on the Browns. I don't think ever.
They're your Dallas Cowboys, basically.
I don't hate them. I just don't. I can't. I think it's impossible. You can beat the Bengals, one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
By however much. Like I don't care. Like It just, it's like I can't bring myself to confidently bet that the Browns are going to do anything good. Now, really what you're betting on is that the Steelers kind of stink, which I'm on board with that, but the Steelers played also like not only maybe the best team in football, but maybe the best team that's been in football for many years now. Right. So they look bad. Yeah. They look bad, but they looked bad against like a juggernaut super team. I don't know. I'm not sold on the Browns, and we know that the Browns sort of have the Bengals number. We know that Joe Burrow this is a normal thing for him. He starts slow on the regular. He misses training camp like pretty much every year. He got injured in training camp this year. So yeah, I'm just out. I'm out on betting on the Browns. I get it though. Like on paper, it looks like, okay, if this is a team that just spanked the Bengals, then they should be able to also beat this other team that got spanked by more than 2 points. Right. Makes sense. It makes sense. I just can't do it. I can't.
And that's not the main hinge of the point that they beat the Bengals. Sure, that helps. It is more like you said that the Steelers would suck, kind of the same way I said the Panthers would just not be there. And the Saints are good enough to get over the top. The Browns are just good enough to get over the top, in my opinion. But John, I know that you have a handful of games you wanted to talk about as well. So what you got?
Yep. Okay. So first up, I've got Chiefs over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let me grab the spread on this. So I'm betting the spread here at -3. I think the Chiefs will beat the Jags. I think the Chiefs will beat the Jags by more than 3 points. I think the Colts actually gave the Jags a lot more trouble than they should have. Jacksonville looks fine. Trevor Lawrence looks fine. He definitely looks like he's going to get every endorsement for every hair product of everyone in the NFL. He's got the hair products on lock. So he does have that going for him, but I don't think that's going to help him win football games. Chiefs drop one to the Lions. I think that they go back to the locker room and they say, hey, let's not lose any games to teams that we're better than anymore. Okay. And that means that they're not going to lose any games to pretty much anybody outside of maybe Bills, Bengals, would have been Jets and maybe Dolphins, Chargers. Like they're not going to, those are the only games that they're going to even allow. Okay, if we lose those games, that's fine. They're not going to allow any more wins from any teams that are not as good as them. They needed that week 1 shocker. I think they go out and dog walk the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars played the Colts and they were able to eke out a win and it was cool. And then they're going to now go play like a really good football team. And it's going to be a kick in the groin. So give me the Chiefs on the spread -3. I think this is like a great that like we're playing a lot of recency bias here. Jaguars won, Chiefs lost to the Lions. Maybe the Chiefs aren't very good. I'm not sold.
I hear what you're saying. I love betting for the Chiefs, not against the Chiefs. I like that they're getting Chris Jones back, maybe Travis Kelce too. I also don't think Patrick Mahomes likes to lose back-to-back games. I don't think he's done it much in his career.
Nope.
However, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags look just good enough to make me nervous enough to not bet the other way, but maybe stay out of the action on this one until we see the Chiefs actually secure.
I hear you.
This year.
I mean, that's fine. That's fine. I think there's a mental element at play. I might not be betting this if the Chiefs had won, and if the Chiefs had won, the spread would probably be a little bit bigger. But because they lost, I get that 3-point spread, and I think they're going to be full of piss and vinegar. So, give me the Chiefs at the -3 spread. Next up, Colts and Texans. Colts looked much better than I thought they would. Speaking of that Colts Jaguars matchup, Anthony Richardson he's something. He's not nothing, right? He's something. He's okay. The Colts are okay. They don't look that bad. If they have Jonathan Taylor, they might win that game against the Jaguars. Now, I'm not saying they're going to have Jonathan Taylor this week. I don't think they will, but I don't think they need him to beat the Texans. I think the Texans are awful. And we have a 1-point spread here. So if you think the Colts are going to win, then you might as well take the Colts on the spread here because it's 1 point. If they're going to win, the likelihood that they're going to win by only 1 point is so low. So I like the Colts over the Texans. I think that they're going to win. It's one of the games I feel more confident in, and I like that it's a -1 spread.
I think if push came to shove, I think you're right on this one. The Texans I file in the same spot as the Panthers, where I'm generally down on, especially to start the season. But the unpredictability of when these rookie QBs might kind of click into place and figure it out, I think somewhere on their schedules, one team's going to get a big surprise, and it could just happen any week. So again, I would be on your side of this bet, but it's just enough to scare me off of being in the action.
Yeah, I mean, you got that on both sides of the ball, though, don't you?
You do, but there's something about this Texans team that I think it's the expectations are higher for Colts early, and I think at a certain point in the season, the Texans will flip the script on the league a little bit.
Yeah,
not a playoff team, nothing like that. But
I mean, I like it. I like the action still, but it's not my most confident bet. My most confident bet is Chargers at Titans on the spread. What do we got here? Chargers at Titans on the spread. What's the spread?
3.
Did you say this one?
Yeah, I did. The Chargers are 3-point favorites.
Chargers, Titans on the spread.
Oh, I think you had. Weren't you going to talk about your Vikings? I think.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so Chargers at Titans on the spread. That's my most confident bet. You already talked about that one. I'll hit one more here. I like the Vikings on the money line. We're at +260 on the money line against the Eagles. Look, if I got a dead even bet on this, then I'd probably bet the Eagles, or I just wouldn't bet it because I don't want to bet against the Vikings. This is a homer bet for sure. If you're going to follow me into a bet, follow me into the Chargers and Titans game. Don't follow me into this game. I'm not putting a lot of dollars on this game, but I like it at +260 because I think the Vikings are better than the people give them credit for right now. And I think the Eagles are not as good as people are giving them credit. Like, they had way too much trouble with the Pats. Are the Pats that good, or were the Eagles just that rusty? I don't know. But if they're rusty like that, then they're ripe to take an upset loss. And so, yeah, I like the Vikings at +260. What night are they playing? Are they on? The only reason that might not be true is if they're on prime time, which I don't know. Yeah, they are. So they are on Thursday. So maybe I don't do that bet, but I am just for a homer bet, just for action. Probably not going to win that one, but if I do win, I win big.
Make 90% of your bets with your brain. Use your heart for the other 10%. There you go.
Yeah.
This one is probably the only one I don't outright agree with you. Even though I wouldn't bet the other ones that you suggested necessarily, I do tend to be your side of the equation. This one on the money line for sure, I wouldn't bet. Maybe to cover the spread. I guess I'm up in the air on it enough to be. Out
look,
on this
if they
action,
lose,
but I agree with your premise that the Vikings are generally underappreciated, and the Eagles. You're talking to the. I predicted the outbreak. The outbreak is a different thing. I predicted the breakout of the Eagles last year. I felt very confident about them. They're mostly the same, but I think they are a little over projected this year. People got a little too well acquainted with them last year, and I agree. This game could be closer. I think the Vikings could cover the spread. You could bet in worse places, but I don't like the money line personally.
I wouldn't bet them on the spread because I do think look, if it's prime time and if the Vikings are going to lose, they're going to get spanked. That's just the Vikings.
They're going to win big or lose big.
They're going to win small or lose big.
Win small or lose big. I like it. That is the most Kirk Cousins thing of all time.
That is Kirk Cousins all the way. He's going to win small or lose big, but if he wins
Maybe they
small on the
can
money
break
line,
their own record of the largest comeback in NFL history in this one. That
yeah,
might happen, you know.
that would be great. Yeah, I mean, if they win small on the money line, then it's a bet a little win a lot opportunity. So yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna spend 10% of my budget on it.
All right,
Not putting a lot of dollars there.
Let's move away from the game bets and into some player props. John, you got the first player prop loaded up, and wouldn't you know it, it's from this exact same game we were just talking
Yeah.
about.
Speaking of homer picks, I like Justin Jefferson on receptions, so we've got an over/under set at 7.5. I mean, it's pretty. Jordan Addison looks good. Looks like he could be something. He's not nothing,
Agreed.
but
Agreed.
the game script is gonna. We have no Dalvin Cook there anymore, right? We've got no like. The game script is going to call for a lot of passes to Justin Jefferson. And the Vikings have shown time and time again, like, yeah, scheme for him, right? Like, you're going to scheme for him, right? That's what the defenses are going to do. They're going to scheme for Justin Jefferson because that's kind of all the Vikings got going. It's Kirk to Justin. That's what they got going on. It doesn't matter. He's just so good, and he's going to get so many targets that you can scheme for him all you want. He's going to grab 8 receptions. Seems just very realistic. I like him. I'm not betting that farm on it, but I like the over on 7.5 receptions for Justin Jefferson.
I like this one too. Sneaky. I like this one. We had a crossover on the game bets with the Chargers. We have a crossover on the player props here with Justin Jefferson. I think he cleared over 7.5 more often than not last year, or half of his games last year anyway. So I'm in on this one. I also think, like you mentioned, the Patriots can do it with multiple guys. You know, they had they had 3 guys over five.
Yeah, but we've got Mac Jones throwing for what, 220 yards, something like that. Like
JJ is going to clear that mark for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
There's a big target vacuum there. Rookies can have good performances, but they don't necessarily demand targets on a weekly basis. To your point with Addison,
right?
With Thielen and Cook out of there's a target vacuum in Jefferson's favor. I'm all the way with you on this one. I'm going to take it from one Justin to the next, but from the receiver position to the quarterback position, I'm riding Justin Fields this week. By the way, that last player prop was from DraftKings. If you want to jump on that action, get on it quick before the line moves, I guess, on Justin Jefferson. This one is from Prize Picks. We have an over-under of 174.5 passing yards for Justin Fields this week at the Buccaneers. I like this one for the over. I think that Justin Fields was pretty disappointing last week. That's how I'm going to start out this argument. I think that he still has some development to do in his chemistry with the new number 1 target, DJ Moore. But I do think that's something you can anticipate will get better over time. Will it get better fast enough for him to clear this line? Well, here's the only thing you need to know. Last week, as bad as they were, as much as they let you down, they still cleared this line, this 174.5 passing yards line. They cleared it by 40 yards against the Packers last week. So I don't see any reason why Tampa Bay should be really any different. I think they're similar in defensive capabilities, Tampa Bay and the Packers. So again, I just don't see any reason why we'd expect Justin Fields to throw for 40 yards less than he did last week, given that he's developing more chemistry with his number 1 target week in and week out. What do you say to that?
Okay. Yeah. So that I don't have this bet on my block. You made a compelling enough argument to maybe convince me, otherwise, other than this. So if I hadn't made my plan already, I'm a big fan of, plan your bet your plan. So if I hadn't made my plan already, if I was kind of listening to the show or watching the show and open to ideas, then I might be open to that Justin Fields idea on the over. Where I don't like it personally is I like to give it all a little bit more of an eye test before I want to bet it. And I didn't feel like I got a good enough look at that Packers at that basically really I feel like I got a great look at the Packers offense. I didn't feel like I got a good enough look at the Bears offense to get a feel for like, why did he get that passing yards number? Do I feel like that's kind of like a replicable thing that we're going to see week in and week out? It could be that the bookmakers are just low on Fields' passing yards right now. And they're going to adjust over the course of the season. So it could be a great opportunity to hey, grab those low overs on Justin Fields while you still can.
Speaking of grabbing the low overs while you still can, here's another guy, admittedly with quite a bit higher over, but I'm going to call for it here again. Another one from Prize Picks. I'm taking Brock Purdy with the over at 225.5 passing yards against the Rams at the Rams this week. This one's pretty clear cut for me. As a Niners fan, I watch every single snap of Niners football, and if you watch that game at all, you saw what I saw in that the passing offense was off the chain early. Purdy was slinging the ball. I think he was something like 12 for 14 early on in like the first half. He was completing everything to everybody all over the field. The pace slowed down a ton on the passing side because the Steelers couldn't keep up with the Niners. That score ended up being 30-7. So my premise basically is that the Rams should be able to keep up for a bit longer. I still think the Rams ultimately lose this game, but if the Rams can put up more than a touchdown, if they can put up, 2 touchdowns or maybe 17 points total, something like that, that gives the Niners a bit more urgency to keep the passing offense going longer into the game, keep the ball moving. And I really think that, based off the pace that they set early, they're well within their capabilities of exploding for more than 226 passing. I mean, we're talking about a Kyle Shanahan-led offense. He can scheme up 226 passing yards when it calls for it. I think this is one of those weeks. Purdy showed that he can do it now at this point. If you're not on board the Purdy train, I don't know what you're doing. He's only shown us great stuff. So, and maybe the biggest point of all, going into week 2, every single one of his weapons are still healthy, which is the main thing that comes to bite the Niners in the butt. So bet on them while you can, while they're healthy.
Yeah, I think a lot of this has to do with game script. So to me, I'm looking at this and saying the Rams put up 31 against the Seahawks. How many points do we feel like they can put up against the Niners? Because I think there's a good chance the Niners have 15, 20 points going into the half. Can the Rams keep up with that pace? If they can't, and we have a fourth, like the Niners are not going to pass if they're up like that. They're going to run out the clock. So I think a lot of this, the where I'm wary of this bet is game script. Kyle Shanahan is going to make the adjustments that he needs to make. He doesn't care about these. I know it's a shocker. He doesn't care about these player props at all. Keep calling him and telling him, Kyle, like, we're betting the player props. Will you get this guy the passing yards? But like, he doesn't seem to care. He just wants to win football games. So yeah, I hear you. Brock, very capable of doing it, has all the weapons. Everything's there. It all depends on the Rams, really.
If they can put up 17, 21, something like that, that gives the Niners room to gallop.
Yeah. If the Rams can put up the points, then yes, I do think Brock. And a big reason is because he's going to get some passing yards to Christian McCaffrey, passing into the backfield, passing into the flats, right? And CMC is going to turn them into yak yards. So yeah, I mean, look,
it's a deep shot in the books, it's a long deep shot.
Yeah, 4 or 5 of those for 60, 70 yards. And it's like, that's significant on the passing yards totals. So everybody, even the running backs, can catch on the Niners. So yeah, I mean, it's there. The capability's there. It's all on the Rams on this over under, that's why I don't love it. That's why I don't love it. I don't like put it in the hands of the Rams.
We stay neat and tidy on this a lot, and we don't dive into certain plays necessarily a ton, but did you see that run by CMC?
Yeah, the one he broke off for like, what was it, like 50 and a touchdown?
That spin move, man. That's the elite Madden spin move. I mean, video game stuff. And I mean, just like to your point, that could have just as easily been a pass to the flats instead of a stretch play or whatever it was. So just to your point, it could all happen in a few plays, honestly. So those are our bets. John, we wanted to talk about maybe putting our money where our mouth is a little bit more here.
Yeah, let's do some budget breakdown. So we'll call this segment $100 to bet. Look, you could be betting with 1,000.
That's a hell of a name, John. That's a hell of a. I mean,
$100 to bet. I'm very on the nose with my segment names.
Love it.
$100 to bet. It's for
now. Now you'll have to explain the rules to me because I don't know what we're doing.
We got $100 to bet. We've already said what our bets are. We're just gonna break out like how we're placing our budgets, how much we're placing on each bet. My thought on this is, look, you could be, if you want to win real money, you could be betting with $1,000, $10,000. Either way, though, I do think you should be managing budget. Like, I don't think you should be betting $5,000 when you don't have $5,000 to lose, right? And I do think that you should be betting a portfolio as well. Those are sort of key elements that I think are, that I'm really big on. So these are the bets we like. If we have $100 to bet, how are we breaking that up across these bets? And that kind of tells you how we're looking at our percentages. So I'll go first. So I've got, my biggest bet is Chargers at Titans, Chargers to win and beat the 3-point spread. I have $35 on that. Next up, I've got Chiefs versus Jags, Chiefs to win and beat the spread. I've got $25 on that. And then I've got Colts to beat the Texans and beat the spread. I've got $15 there. Justin Jefferson over 7.5 receptions. I've got $15 there. And then the Vikings on the money line at plus 260. I have $10 there. If I win, I win $26. It's my for fun bet. It's my flyer.
I like him, John. I think that's a good portfolio. And we actually share our number one commitment. I also bet the biggest on the Chargers over the Titans in Houston. I think the main thing our viewers could take away, or viewers or listeners could take away from this is, hey, go jump on that bet while
Yeah.
the line is where it
The,
is. I,
the spread is favorable there right now.
Yeah, it's very nice, very tasty, very scrum-diddly-umptious. I'm putting $25 on those Chargers to beat the Titans by over 3 points. I like that there. Then I have a bunch of bets kind of at 20. I have three. I have the Justin Fields over 174.5 passing yards. I think that one's, the money speaks for itself. I feel like that's a solid bet. I have Brock Purdy in that same category at over on 225.5. That's another $20 bet I have there. And I also put 20 on the Browns to beat the Steelers and beat the spread of 2 there. I think that's pretty easily in the cards. Then some other ones that I just like the action on and maybe diversifying the portfolio a bit. Put $10 on the Saints over the Panthers, even with that 3-point spread. Like I said, I think they can do it. And I jumped on the same player prop as you with Justin Jefferson. Threw $5 your way because I like your take on that one too.
Yeah.
That's my 100.
Funsy bet.
Yeah.
I like it. So we'll see how it shakes out. You guys, obviously, we're kind of we're just being transparent there. So whether we really I don't know if we're gonna have like a weekly tracker of where we're at or anything like that, but we're allowing sort of the audience to follow along and say like, okay, well, yeah, I like following John into bets, or I like following Casey into bets, or they're both awful, or I follow Casey only when he's betting on the Niners because he's always right. Whatever it is, you can kind of follow along with what we're doing and how much of our sort of betting budget we're putting into that. That's the show for today. Check the link in the description. We are doing a giveaway. Win a free NFL mystery jersey. Could be a player like Pat Mahomes, could be a Ray Lewis. Who's some of the other guys? Joe Montana. Could be a Travis Kelce. It's a mystery jersey. We don't know what it is until we break it open, but we are giving it away to one person. So hit the link in the description. You'll get entered. You will get subscribed to the Overtime Operators newsletter that comes out every Thursday. It's sort of the newsletter version of this show, and it's kind of the most up-to-date before we go into the weekend thing. So we'll hit on the same stuff we hit on today, but maybe give you updates if the lines have moved. And I think that's it. That's the show. Anything else from you, Casey?
We might not keep track of all of our bets and exactly where we are on our portfolio, how much we've gone up and down, but you can believe we'll revisit bets we got right, and I'm sure that we'll at least own the bets that we were on the wrong side of too. And through those trends, like you said, I think people will understand where they agree with us and disagree with us more often than not. So sure. I'm feeling these bets though, John. I think we both have good portfolios going into week 2 and can't wait to watch another week of football.
All right, we'll see you next time.